sometimes couples are looking for the exit sign in their marriage, in their relationship. And so part of my job is to help them to not look at the exit sign. There must be another way. Let's try this before you go there. And so one of the things I'm reminded of from my pairs training, practical application of intimate relationship skills, educational program, is something called the daily temperature reading. The daily temperature reading is a conversational tool, communication tool for couples to use to help them better improve their listening and communication skills. And with this tool, there are 5 items, and the first item is...
What's up, fam? Hey, man, it's your boy again, Kev, with my boo,
Tanya.
Yeah, man, we're about to kick off another episode of Couples Connect. And today, man, we have an awesome couple, man, that's before you going to give you some knowledge on blended families, counseling when you need that in your marriage as well. So, guys, please help us welcome, man. Right now, we're going to just say Team Fox is in the building. Team Fox is in the building. Give it up for Team Fox for sure. Yeah, so Reverend Dr. Pamela Fox, and I got my brother Kevin Fox here, man. I'll never forget that name.
All right.
But welcome to Couples Connect, guys.
Thank you. It's our pleasure to be here with you both today. We're so happy.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we wanted to kind of push the record button before, because we're about to get into it. But tell them a little bit about your background, Dr. Fox, and we'll go to Kev as well, in terms of what kind of makes you that, you got doctor, you got reverend. What is truly your profession, and how do you help people?
Oh, I thank you for that question, Kevin. I am, by introduction, Reverend Dr. Pamela Fox. I'm an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker and psychotherapist. I have a private practice. I'm a solo entrepreneur in Arlington, Texas, through my private practice, which is named the Synergy Counseling and Coaching Center. I've been in Arlington at my office and in the community since 2017, and very happy to be of service to the community. I provide trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy with adults, fee for service. I don't bill insurance companies, so it's strictly fee for service, more of a concierge practice, if you will. In terms of mental health and wellness, I am a licensed clinical social worker, as I mentioned, but also a certified life coach in a variety of areas of life coaching, but specifically for today's conversation, looking at relationship life coaching, and more specifically in terms of my certification as a marriage and family therapist, integrating a special educational program called PAIRS, which I was trained in back in the 90s. And PAIRS has to do with practical application of intimate relationship skills. So it's a skill building, communication building course for couples and for even for individuals, for teenagers, for children, for college students, widely used right now by the VA in terms of military community, used in the faith-based community. So it's really a wonderful, wonderful program that has far-reaching implications to try to bring back the love. Can I get a witness? Bring back the love.
I love it. Bring it back.
In our relationships and in ourselves and in our communities.
I love it. Man, so much.
That's much to unpack.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so before we unpack all that, Kev, what's your background? What you got going on? I know some stuff that you guys do or have worked together in the past. Tell the people a little bit about your background, what you got going on.
Okay, so we are both in mental health and wellness. I started working with my wife at Synergy Counseling Center. I kind of have a dual role now, excuse me, in that I'm a program manager at North Texas Behavioral Health Authority. And so we are community health worker program there. We help people with substance use disorder and mental health issues. We work primarily in the underserved communities, right? And we know what that looks like with the social determinants of health and the needs that we have, that we see in the communities, that it's really, really high. And so my other role is I'm a community health worker instructor. So I teach a community health worker in a course with Baylor, Scott and White. And so that's a 160-hour course. And it's a peer-centered, peer-focused kind of position. And so we're not clinical. The people who work at North Texas work under me have a lived experience, which is much more effective when you're dealing with the underserved.
Gotcha. Wow. Y'all, that's two interesting, very interesting titles and what y'all do in life, man. That's
Yes.
pretty amazing, right? So let's unpack some of that stuff, man. So I know Silver Fox is what I like to call you. Silver Fox, I think we're okay with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, well, first of all, let's go back to what you said before the cameras came on about this little cougar situation you got going on. Let's talk about it. So you snatched up a younger man.
I did.
How did you do it, girl? How did you do it?
I was minding my own business.
Okay.
I was in seminary.
Okay.
And then there was this young man who was at the front desk who kept talking to me, and I was not paying attention. And he would talk to me, and I would say, hey, how you doing, whatever, I got to go to class. So then he finally struck up a really kind of interesting conversation with me, like, hi, how you doing? And I like your car. And I'm like, is he stalking me? How does he know what kind of car I have?
Right.
But he knows because he's working like security at the seminary. And so I said, he's interested in me. And I said, so what am I going to do? Because I didn't know what to do. I was, at that time, divorced mom with kids, in school, working full time, and what have you. And I didn't know nothing about dating or anything like that. And I said, well, he's interested in me. So I said, what can I do? So I went to the vending machine and I got him some Famous Amos chocolate chip cookies out of the vending machine. And I brought them to him. I said, I got you some cookies. And he said, oh, thank you so much. And then he liked the cookies. So the next time I saw him, I said, I got some free tickets from my job to go to a comedy club, and maybe you would like to give them to your girlfriend. You and your girlfriend can go.
Smooth.
And he said, I don't have a girlfriend. I said, oh, okay. I said, maybe you'd like to go with me. And he said, okay. And so that was kind of like our first date.
So, ladies, if you want to know how to get your first date, buy 'em some
Yeah.
Famous
Cookies.
Amos
Yes.
chocolate chip. Gotta
I'm
be
telling
chocolate
you.
chip.
I'm telling you, it was a hit.
It was a
And
hit.
as they say, the rest is history.
The rest is history.
And what I did is I was working security there, right? So when they come in, they have to sign in. And so I would, one day I got up and said, what's her name? You know, so I got up and looked at the sign-in book. The next time she come in, I was like, oh, hey, Pamela, how are you? And she was like, how did you know my name? Well, you sign in.
Well, you guys must have been using some cocoa butter, some coconut
I'm
oil,
telling
because
you.
y'all are glowing.
Thank
Oh,
Like,
well,
you're
thank you,
such
thank
a
you.
beautiful
Thank
couple.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Lovely.
Yeah, I love it.
Yes.
Beautiful. So
Well,
Kel,
I'm originally from Chicago. Kev's
Okay.
from the San Francisco Bay Area. So I think it's the atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
where we grew up.
Right. So, Kev, did you kind of have an eye on her when she was
I'm telling you.
coming by, walking by?
Well, yeah, it's the complexion, the dimples. This was the dimples and the smile. Because she come in, she have this smile, and the dimples was just popping.
Right,
and
right.
and the skin tone and everything.
Yeah.
And I got to find, what is her name? You know, so I got up and I read her name, and then the next day she came in, I called her by her name, and she was kind of taken aback. And it was wintertime when we met, and the parking lot's full of snow. So I would always walk her to her car, and I'd shovel the snow, and so that she wouldn't slip and fall, that kind of thing.
Wow.
So,
He's such a gentleman.
Yeah,
What a gentleman.
I love it. And how many years now?
It'll be 30 next year.
30 years.
30 years next year.
30 years.
Oh,
All the trials and tribulations of 30 years. Relocating from Chicago to here,
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah.
And we talked about blended family, the blended family dynamics and all of that. So it's been very interesting over the years. And so now we are empty nesters.
Love it.
That's another chapter.
That's another chapter.
Yeah.
Well, let's unpack that whole blended family situation, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
I know we talked about that was a very interesting thing that you guys experienced in your marriage, right? So,
Yes.
from the beginning when y'all got together, how did that blended family situation affect you guys in any kind of way, if it did in any kind of way?
So for me, as a family therapist and provider of mental health services, what I know is that the blended family is said to be the most complicated family system there is, because you have yours, mine, and ours. So your kids, my kids, our kids. And so that was the case for us when we got together, because when Kevin and I were dating, I had 3 children at the time, various ages, and they were going through their various middle school issues, high school issues, and what have you. And like, who is this guy that you're bringing into our family? And so that was interesting. We worked it out. It was a little challenging at times, but Kevin also had children. And so then bringing all that into the fold was kind of an interesting quilt that we had to weave together, and we successfully were able to do that.
Wow.
Yeah,
How many kids, Mr. Kevin, did you bring into the marriage?
I had 2.
2.
And so I had 2 when we met, and we had 1 child together. And so for me, it's really, so that wasn't my first experience in a blended family, because I was a child of a blended family. So that made a big difference for me. My bonus father came into my life when I was 12 years old. And of course, with my biological father, there was all this admiration that I had for him. And so there was this kind of dichotomy, this dual role, that I had a admiration for my father, but he was not really present, and kind of a resentment for stepfather. And it took a while for that relationship to gel. We got really, really close, and I considered him. I ended up calling him my dad, because he was really the best thing that ever happened to me. And so my mother brought him into our life, and that was my blended family experience. And so when I moved to Chicago as a young man, I was 19, 20 years old, and I brought that dynamic to you, because it takes patience, right? Understanding, acceptance, and all of that to be able to handle the complexities of a blended family, right? So it didn't faze me at all that when we met that she had kids. I'm used to it, right? So, and there was that situation as well. There was who was this guy, and they had admiration for their father, right? So there was this quilt, as she said, that had to be woven, right? And it's never easy to do.
So if the kids are kind of like, coming to mom and saying, who is this guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was your approach? Did you have any approach to try to kind of win them over, so to speak? To say, hey, maybe get to know them, spend time with them. I don't know, take them go get some ice cream. What was your approach to maybe try to get them to kind of accept that situation?
But
I'm sorry.
I was going to say that for my children, probably for other kids in blended families, the thought for this new parent, this bonus parent coming in, the child may be thinking or may even say, you're not the boss of me.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you and why are you here in our space? And so it takes some real navigating on the part of the biological parent to really weave that thing together. He or she has to take ownership for really being assertive and trying to make that blending to come together. In the case of when Kevin and I got together and Kevin moved in to our house, the house where the children and I lived, something that helped to weave us together, he redid the whole kitchen. And drywall, this, that, and the other, cabinets, the whole 9 yards. And so he had the children help him with the project.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
They never did nothing like that because that's not what I do. And so it was kind of a major project, and it really needed to be done. And so the children were able to bond and communicate with Kevin because they were helping him with a hands-on task, a project, and they got to know him better doing that thing. Furthermore, the other thing in terms of what won me over in our relationship is he can cook like nobody's business. So it was a lasagna for me.
Right.
All right, so he did that with the kids too, because I was doing like all these not fast food. We was doing frozen food and stuff like that because cooking is not my forte. But Kevin, he come in, he's doing these projects, home improvement projects, and then he brings some food or he makes some food. He was like, okay, he can stay. We eating real good right now, Mama. And so it kind of worked out in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So it went from who you bringing to this house
Right.
to like,
Everything. Come on.
And that was still,
You're welcome.
that was still an issue. Yeah. Even when I was cooking, though, there was still, and it was still an issue because when I cook, hey, I'm messing up dishes. And I'm putting dishes in the sink, and kids, they didn't like that. So,
Right.
you're making more work for, but eventually as I started, making the meals and with love and care, I won them over. It wasn't right away. And I talked a bit about what I do for a living is lived experience. And that's what I was able to bring to the relationship of the blended family, that lived experience, because I had been there before, right?
Yeah.
And so, and like Pam said, when I came in, there was work that needed to be done in the house, right? And having a team concept that they can work with me on a project for their home and make it look better. And so Mike was all on. He was in, boy, that's my stepson. And so he was all over it. He wanted to do it. So, and the funnest part for him was just tearing the walls down, right? So
Right,
he loved that part. So he was into it. And so we would measure twice, cut once, and get all the work done. We hung the drywall, put the tile in, changed the sink out, everything. So countertops, all of that. And so we go to make our trips to Home Depot. We did everything DIY, and it created a bond.
Yeah.
And it really helped our relationship to grow. And my stepdaughter as well, Michelle, was wanting to help, and together it was a team project, and that created that bond, right, in the blended family, because you have to have something to have them rally around, that you can have something in common, do something together, and accomplish something together, and it really, really worked very effectively in building that blended family.
That's pretty cool. It's like sneaking vegetables
Yes,
into a
there you
meal.
go. Yeah.
Yes.
Trying to get the kids to eat their vegetables so that they can be healthy. So you did it in a way where you did a project.
Yeah.
So you guys can be healthy and bond in that way. See, that's why y'all have those degrees in mental health and that kind, because you know how to play those little games and
Yeah,
tricks
yeah.
that really helps.
Yeah.
So
Trick.
You can't come in
Technique.
heavy-handed.
Smooth.
yes.
It's just,
Finesse.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's good at it, I tell you that. Yeah, that's
But the thing, too, I remember, too, back in those days, is that Kevin had to make a transition from being a bachelor in his single-man pad, our apartment in Chicago, near the campus of the seminary, to come into the farther south side of Chicago to live in this house, nice house, but it needed work. And it was a house with a divorced mom, 3 kids, and 2 dogs. So he goes from having his own bachelor pad, doing his thing as a bachelor guy, single guy, to coming into this house, ready-made house with these children that he got to know and these 2 dogs. He said, I'm probably saying he didn't tell me, but I'm thinking he's thinking, oh my goodness, what have I done? What have I done? But it worked out fine.
Yeah. So how long did it take once y'all got together before it started to feel like everything is smooth now? I mean, the kids have fully accepted, you're in your flow in the house, and everything feels like peace. You know what I'm saying?
Or are you still working on it?
No, because we're empty nesters, so them children
Okay.
are gone. We launched them. I think it took for the youngest child to graduate from high school. And so when Kevin moved in, Mike seems like 11. And so he didn't graduate for several years thereafter. So it didn't feel like things were kind of like very okay until he graduated. And then what happened with my son Mike when he was 16, unfortunately, is that he got accidentally shot. Neighbor across the street, kids were bullying him. He decided to get a gun. And so he was showing Mike, my son, the gun in his family's basement across the street. And then the gun went off and shot Mike in his thyroid artery. Wow. not the carotid artery because he would have died, but the thyroid artery. So that was a big old humongous crisis that came about in our family that Kevin really stepped up. Kevin was the one, 'cause I was sick. I got home from work, it was wintertime. I got home from work, took some cold medicine, went to bed. And so then Kevin came in the room to wake me up. He said, wake up now. Michael's been shot. Like, what?
Wow.
What? And then it was from that, it was police and fire and all these things going on and paramedics and all that stuff. And then rushing Michael to the trauma center. But Kevin did a yeoman's job, tremendous job of trying to hold things together during that time, but I was like losing it. Like, oh my gosh.
Because a crisis can either tear you apart or can bring you closer together. And it's all depend on how you handle it, right? So it was a crisis. And again, it was something that we were able to rally around and show unconditional love and support and to build that relationship. And it's still, even today, it's not always going to be smooth. There's always going to be ups and downs, peaks and valleys.
Sure.
Those types of relationships, it's never a straight line. It's always forward, backwards, up, down, right? But it's always going to be trending up. That's the key, because over the long haul, yeah, it's going to be down, up, but over, you'll see the trend. As it goes up, the relationship strengthens, right? And when he got shot, that was an opportunity, as well as a crisis. There was an opportunity to strengthen that bond, show that unconditional love and support for the whole family, and be there in that time of need. And so that was a great opportunity for us to build that relationship.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it also caused the resurfacing of the ex-husband in the ICU. My son has been shot. Ex-husband was a Chicago police officer. So that was an interesting dynamic too. Because I don't think your paths crossed, I'm not sure.
No, it wasn't that type of situation, but there was that relationship where with the kids, like what I had that lived experience with, I had this admiration for my father, even though he was not present, and a type of a sort of a resentment for my stepfather, my bonus father, when he came in. And that relationship took years for it to strengthen, to the point where after I graduated high school and became older, our bond was really strong. And I looked up and admired and respected him. And he was a great man. And it took me some time to realize that, because I'm going through my own little junior high adolescent issues, right? So it's a process, and it's not easy.
So you touch a little bit on once the kid's father came in. Was there much, maybe from your end, baby mama drama or baby daddy drama from y'all ex-spouses? That, you know what I'm saying? How did y'all navigate through that? And what just a little bit of what that looked like?
Dr. Fox seemed like she didn't take no notes. It seemed like she just straight up.
My name is Les, I don't take no mess.
That's right.
But I'm reminded of something one of my clients told me, because I would share with her in terms of how you have to distance yourself from people who are negative. I said, you have to treat them with the long-handled spoon. She said, nope, treat them with the long-handled shovel. Keep a lot of distance from the negativity. And unfortunately, my ex-husband had some unresolved issues because he had an absent father. And I remember him telling me years ago when we were still married, and I didn't come up in a blended family. I came up in a two-parent family. He said, you will never know what it's like to not have your father in the home. I never forgot that. That's a whole different dynamic that I never experienced in my whole life. And so the absence of the father is very, very important in terms of the lived experience, talking about the lived experience of the kid. Hopefully the father is halfway decent, but if the father was not a good parent, not a good person, that's a problem. That causes trauma and drama for the kids. Those are the kind of folks that end up in my office talking about unresolved issues from their childhood. They think they're coming into therapy for one thing, but they're coming in to resolve that unresolved issues from the absent father or absent mother, or the what I call the 4 A's, which is attachment issues, attaching to your parent, abuse issues because your parent was abusive, addiction issues because your parent was an addict, drugs, alcohol, gambling, other things, or your parent was abandoning. Those 4 things can cause people to have mental health issues, and particularly personality disorders. You're talking about narcissism? That's kind of the root cause of the narcissism. You know, narcissists get bad rap, and sometimes it's well-deserved. But in many cases, that root cause of where that issue comes from has to do with attachment, abuse, addiction, or abandonment. And so for me and for my kids, the middle kids, their issue was, it was abuse, which is what led to the divorce. And then thereafter, there was abandonment. So their dad kind of like vanished in the wind until it was time to come to some resolution about why Michael got shot. Then he wanted to sue the neighbor for that money. Get that money. Just because his son, it was an accident. I forgave the neighbor and what have you. But their dad wanted to pursue it legally in terms of the insurance, which he did.
And now what we're seeing, talking about that blended family, is I went through it as a young man, and as an adult and a husband, I went through it. And now my biological son, his name is Kevin, and just got married in our home
3 weeks ago.
And his wife has 2 children. So he is now in the blended family situation. So he is practicing what he's seen from his father. So that gives me a great sense of pride and joy. And they got married in our home, which was awesome. And so we are very pleased about that. And so you can see how that blended family dynamic continues to carry over from my childhood, my adulthood, and now my children, our children.
We had a little bit of a blended family situation. Kevin, before we got married, he had 2 daughters, 2 girls. And at the time, they were 7 and 8, and I loved them, still do to this day, and loved them like they were my own. But we had one, the oldest one, she came to live with us for a little while. And I think she stayed for about a year. And it just didn't work out well because, you know, she was a teenager, she's 16, and here I am. Though she knew me, had been knowing me now for about 8 years, but she never lived with us like that. And I guess she thought that I was trying to be her mother. And I tried really hard not to do that. But she didn't have that much respect for me as her stepmom or as her dad's wife. We do now, and we didn't give it time enough to grow into that because she only stayed with us a year. So we know a little bit about what it is to have that blended family dynamic.
Because when people come into your home, they change the climate of the household.
Yes, that's exactly what
And sometimes
happened.
with the I'll call them bonus children, you as the step parent or the bonus parent can never replace their biological parent because they have a biological parent. And so that's not your place. And you don't pretend like you're that person because it's disrespectful to their biological parent. But what you can be, to a certain extent, is an advocate and a friend. Not like a buddy friend, but like a friendly adult. And so what you're teaching them, what I know in terms of parenting skills, is that the role of the parent is to love, nurture, model, and teach the child. Love, nurture, model, and teach a child. And so even for the bonus parent, step parent, if you will, their job is to love, nurture, model, and teach the child. The thing is that the child is going through whatever developmental age they are, little kid, middle school kid, teenage kid, young adult kid, is that they're going through their own individual thing, whatever that is. And as the research has indicated, the brain is not fully developed until the person is about 25. So we have these expectations that this person is going to be squared away, and they're not, because their brain is not fully developed. So they're going to do ridiculous stuff because they're making bad decisions or whatever, impulsive decisions, because their brain is not fully developed. So in my opinion, we have to have no level expectations of what's going to happen. Just keep it real simple.
And the key, one of the keys that for the success of the blended family is understanding the boundaries that are there, right? When it comes to discipline, when it comes to the relationship as a whole. There's things that you're going to do, and then you let them know what you're not going to do, right? And it goes both ways. So it's important that, because I had to learn that as a young child when I first got introduced to a blended family situation. So being aware of the boundaries in relationships, and knowing your role, right, is very, very important. Sometimes there's a need for a detached concern, that you can't get too involved and let your emotions take over. A lot of times when you're dealing with children and you're coming into their lives at a certain time, their emotions, they speak from emotion, they react with emotion, they don't think things through, they don't use that logic. So you have to make allowances for that and not get caught up emotionally, and understanding where your boundaries are is very, very important.
And what I've learned too is that in many cases, when it comes to disciplining a child that's not your biological child, it's better for the discipline to be handled by the biological parent rather than the step parent. Because that, talking about boundaries, because that kind of puts a step parent in a precarious, to a certain extent, situation, unless, because it worked out for you, but for many step-parent, step-child situations, it don't work out so well.
But I hear a lot of step moms or couples who dealing with blended families, they want to, like the step-parent, like to say the step-mom, she wants to discipline the child. But then you have the dad who's saying, no, this is my child. So then the step-mom feels left out. She feels as if, well, this is, how am I supposed to bond with this kid if I can't discipline them?
So it's a team approach. So the husband and wife, parents have to work in sync with one another, so you're not undermining them. Because what the children can do is that they'll undermine the authority of the parents, and they'll make the step-parent look bad. And the step-parent is an adult person in the household, and the child should not be allowed to make an adult look bad in the place where they live, or even in another setting. You just don't do that. So the parents have to be in sync. So they have to have offline conversations, not in the presence of the child, about what we're going to do about these children. When Jenny comes over, this is what we're going to do. And the biological parent should be the primary spokesperson, and then the step-parent standing there like, better not. But she or he don't have to say nothing. They just stand there. They provide physical presence that we're in charge, and you're not going to split and divide this relationship, because the children are sneaky sometimes, and they know how to push buttons and how to do things to cause division in the marriage. And then they gone, they high school, they gone, and you all are left in shambles, and that's not okay. So the husband and wife have to be in sync, because the primary ministry, if you will, is the marriage. Mm-hmm. First the marriage and then the family, if all goes well. Sometimes it don't work out that way. But that should be the way that it should go if all works out. And so even when the children are gone, the marriage, hopefully, if y'all have worked on it over time, will survive, even in the absence of the children. So you don't let the children undermine the ministry of the marriage. Ministry is servant leadership, and God ordained. And so you don't let people, places, or things do anything to undermine the strength of the primary ministry, which is the marriage.
And that's the mistake I see with a lot of young couples. They don't recognize the forever status of married. You raising your kids to grow up.
To launch them.
And launch them and get their own lives and have their own families. The marriage is going to be the enduring factor. That's the thing that's supposed to last forever, right? And that's the primary focus in a relationship, especially in a blended family. And if there's a way, like Pam was saying, to discipline the kids without really, overstepping the boundaries. As long as we are in sync and we make decisions together, and it's more of what I do than what I say. How do I carry myself? What example am I setting? Am I doing the right things? and bonding with them in the right way. Like when you come up with projects for them and work with them, cook for them, right? It's a way to get to people, you know. So, and that's the thing for me, you know, my grandmother and my maternal side of my family all from New Orleans, and my grandmother could cook. She could throw down, and so I would always just watch her, right? She could do the gumbo, chicken and dumplings, you name it. And so I just watched her, right, when I was a kid. So that was a skill that I was able to bring to the relationship. That's a special skill that can create a bond, right?
So the way you guys are talking about blended families is so beautiful, how you're describing it. But it's not always like that in households. Can you speak to a family of household that is a blended family and one of the parents are very abusive to the stepchildren? And the parents know that the abuse has happened. The biological parent know that the abuse is happening, but nothing has been done, whether she's scared, you know, to move on, she is, you know, scared of this, of the partner or whatever. Like, can you help or speak to that? Like, what should, or some advice or whatever, what should that parent, more so it's the mother, it's the mom, because she, you know, have the kids and the man is coming in. How would someone handle that? Because that is, I can tell you a quick story really quick. Me and my daughters were out having lunch one day, and I saw this family. It was a family of 5, and it put me in mind of my own family. And that was this man. It was a little girl. She had to be about 4 or 5 years old. I don't know if he was the dad, the real dad, or the stepdad, but I knew it was her children. And the mother was in front of him, the mother and the other 2 kids, but the little girl was with him. And for some reason, I don't know what the little baby could have done, but he hauled off and punched her in the back of her head to where she almost stumbled. She stumbled, but she didn't fall. And he acted as if nothing happened, but I guess he didn't realize that was a window there. So there's some abuse going on in that household. What do you say to women what can they do?
I would say, because I actually went through a similar situation myself before Kevin and I got together. My oldest son is the oldest son, so there's like different sets of children. So I have an older son, then we have the middle children with my ex-husband, and then Kevin and I have a son together. So with my oldest son, my ex-husband was not kind to him at all. And so my ex-husband was an amateur boxer. So he would tell my oldest son, he said, let's go in the garage and I'm going to teach you how to box. But that's not what was really going on. I didn't completely know what was really going on because I didn't go in the garage. But I don't think what was supposed to be training was really training. I think it was abuse. But my oldest son, wouldn't speak on it completely. But I would say, you know, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And I was, you know, social worker at the time. But I felt like I was petrified. I didn't know what to say. It's like, that would be bad if I had to call DCFS about my house, what's going on in my house. So I tried to handle it internally as best I could. But I think even to this day, that situation, I don't even know the totality of it. And my ex-husband has passed away now, many years ago. And then my oldest son's father's passed away many years ago. But I don't think my oldest son has totally ever recovered from whatever happened back in those days that I don't even know the full story about. But because of that, he's a trauma survivor. And so what the parents have to do in those situations where there's abuse, because abuse is not okay. Because when bad stuff happens to children, it's not the child's fault, it's the adult's fault. Those are innocent kids. And so if there's abuse going on, verbal, physical, sexual, emotional abuse going on to a child or neglect, then it's the parent's job to step up and protect the child. As Malcolm X would say, by whatever means necessary.
By whatever means necessary, yes.
But I think for me, I didn't step up and intervene because I was like frozen. Like, what do I do? What do I do? And I knew what to do. I mean, rationally, I knew what to do. But I didn't completely do stuff because I was like a little scared because he's a police officer. Like, he could do something bad to me or to the kids. And so what finally made me wake up and smell the coffee is that I was personally threatened by him. I said, enough's enough and too much stinks. And I said, you got to go. If I perish, I perish. But I'm going to protect these kids, and you got to go. That's when he finally left.
This episode of Couples Connect is sponsored by Just Like You Hair Care System. Introducing Just Like You Hair Care, the perfect solution for healthy, growing, moisturized hair. Our hair growth oil is enriched with essential oils like calendula, lavender, rose petals, also enriched with nourishing jojoba oil, promoting growth, reducing breakage, and restoring scalp health. Follow with our moisturizing leave-in cream to lock in hydration for smooth, manageable hair all day long. So you get to feel confident with thicker, stronger, and deeply moisturized hair. Our products are made with all natural ingredients and is designed for women or anyone who want a holistic approach to hair wellness. Shop today and experience the transformation. Just like you hair care, your hair, your confidence, and your journey. The link is in the show notes. Now back to the episode. Wow.
And so then the children then saw that I was an advocate for them. Because, like, they knew crazy stuff was going on in the house because it's like he was unraveling. And so then he finally went away, but he didn't really go away because he was, like, bothering me, like a stalker, to let me know, I don't have a key to your house, but I'm still going to bother you. So I had to continue to protect the children.
You know, after that situation that I witnessed, I couldn't just sit there and not say anything because I am I was the same way it was done to me as a kid. I was abused. And I just couldn't sit there and not say anything. So I went to the mother when I got a chance, when it was clear she wasn't with him. She was kind of walking by herself. And I told her what I witnessed. And she just shook her head and she was like, oh, okay. I don't know what she did, but I'll never forget it. And sometimes when I think about it, I pray for the little girl and the mom. Because I feel like it's just too much of that going on. If you're a blended family, I feel like, you know, as the father or the mother, there just should be some love and compassion there, not abuse. And
Right,
so
but a lot of times the step parent has resentment about the parent that's not there. Even if the parent is a good parent, it's like almost like jealousy. Like, I'm here and you're not here, what have you, and I got to take care of your kid. So then their transference of their resentment comes out on the child. The child is an innocent victim of the adult person's ridiculousness. But the biological parent has to step up and speak up on behalf of the child and protect the child at all costs. Because the child should not be victimized by a grown-up person, because that causes psychological damage. The physical damage, you know, if there is physical harm, will go away, but the psychological damage stays for a long time.
Yeah.
Do you counsel, or have you counseled anyone, couples that dealt with the blended family situation who was dealing with some of these issues and situations?
Yeah.
What did that look like for you know, giving them advice in those situations?
Under ordinary circumstances, it's a conversation that I have with people. We talk about a lot of different things, some interesting things that I hear, and I say to myself, oh my God, really? I try to keep poker face and I don't speak on it, but I put it in my memory bank and we address it in some subsequent sessions. But if they share with me that there's active abuse going on, my ethical standard is first, do no harm. And I'm a mandated reporter. So if you tell me you're doing something bad to people, then I got to report it. And I tell them that. I mean, in the paperwork that they sign to sign up to be one of my clients, it's in there. Like, you do stuff and then you tell me you're doing stuff? And like, I don't think so. So I have to report elder abuse and I have to report child abuse. And they know that I'm going to do that because that's my job. And so my reporting it is going to involve the system. So we're trying not to involve the system if we don't have to. But I tell them, you need to stop. So under ordinary situations, I don't give directives. It's like non-directive approach. I'm just, listening and what have you and giving feedback and what have you. But you do some stuff like that, I'm going to tell you to stop. I'm going to report you to the authorities.
It's always good to understand a lot of the history that we're seeing, because our story is not typical. Like she said, in the blended family, there's a lot of things that are going on that are not. So we have to recognize generational trauma, right? And how we have to know it when we see it. This is not something that it's just now appeared. This has been going on for a very long time, through generations of generational trauma that we try to get a handle on and understand.
But the trauma is complex because trauma has to do with things that happen outside of the normal range of human experience. An example is Hurricane Katrina, getting hit by an 18-wheeler, being in a war, being in an abusive relationship, domestic violence situation. So those and other things are identified as traumas. But like Kevin is saying, there's different kinds of traumas. So there's personal trauma, there is interpersonal trauma, there is multi-generational trauma from generation to generation. There is racial trauma. Racial trauma, people don't talk about that. That's the effects of racism. Racism is a real thing. And how racism has affected us psychologically and has caused us to have a lot of issues. What some authors talk about, the ongoing legacy of racism and post-traumatic slave syndrome. Post-traumatic slave syndrome.
And so and at North Texas Behavioral Health, we talk a lot about a pair of ACEs, right? So there's adverse childhood experiences, and then there's adverse community experiences, and one affects the other. And when we're working in the underserved population, it's a trauma-informed situation. We pretty much treat somebody from the standpoint that there has been trauma, either in their community or as a child, or both. Most likely it's both. And so we have to understand that when you look at it from that perspective, and you can, once you know what you're looking at, know how to handle that, especially in a blended family situation, it can really help to redirect people from being abusive, knowing also what I call, the term is emotional intelligence, right? Being able to know what triggers you and being able to also know what you say or do that could trigger somebody else. And being in control and understanding how to respond, be reflective instead of responsive, right? It can make a big difference. So that's my message to young couples or people in blended families. Try to turn on and turn up that emotional intelligence so that we can take the temperature of the room, knowing how to handle things that trigger us and knowing what we could say or do that could trigger other people.
Wow. But the other thing that I would have to share with you as a therapist is that part of my job is to assess, diagnose, and treat. So we assess what's the situation, we give it a diagnosis, a name, and then we provide some kind of treatment interventions with that. I'm going to let you in on a secret. So the secret is that all families are dysfunctional. It's just that people talk about the autism spectrum. There's a spectrum of dysfunctionality in families. And so the spectrum is mild, moderate, or severe. And so with that spectrum of dysfunctionality in families, it means that we need to think about, are all people dysfunctional? I would say yes. So there's 8 billion plus of us on the planet. Everybody dysfunctional. So our families are dysfunctional, our marriages are dysfunctional at some level, all people are dysfunctional, all systems are dysfunctional. Political, religious, etc. are dysfunctional. And so with the dysfunctionality in all the systems and what have you, there are 7 family rules. So the 7 family rules are: you don't trust, you don't talk openly and honestly about what's really going on, you don't express your feelings, you project blame, meaning it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. You forget the thumb points back at you. You displace anger all over the place. And as that shows up in the workplace, toxic workplaces, it's seen as passive aggressiveness in the workplace, because it's not okay to be aggressive in the workplace. You get fired or it causes a problem. So you see that displaced anger in the workplace, in the home setting, in the work setting, in the church setting even. So displacement of anger. You scapegoat other people. So somebody becomes a black sheep. And the issue with the black sheep is a black sheep is a truth teller. So the person who's the truth teller gets cast out of community because we got to put on good face, right? And we don't want you, telling everybody we got problems. But you got problems. So the problem with the scapegoat, the black sheep of the family, is that they get kicked out of the community, as we know from the biblical story about the literal scapegoat who took on the sins of the nation of Israel. And the literal black woolly goat got kicked out of the community, taking off the sins of the nation of Israel. It didn't work. But what happens often with the person who is scapegoated, and that becomes a rotating role in families, is that he or she may become so sad that they got kicked out of the community. They act out. They're mad. They're enraged. They may use drugs or alcohol or other substances to self-medicate their anger and rage about being kicked out, that kind of thing. And so then the seventh rule in the family, dysfunctional family, is you maintain family business inside the family. So you don't tell nobody outside the family that the family's really toe up from the flow up. So you keep that inside the family. So don't trust, don't talk openly, honestly about what's really going on. Don't express your feelings. Project blame, displace anger, scapegoat others, and maintain the family secrets.
That's a black family.
Come on now. And so my black job is to help the black family.
That's right.
But
That's a black family.
all of them was amazing, right? And especially the last one. And I think the last one is kind of what we talked about originally of why we're doing this podcast, right? The same reason. You don't talk about stuff, and I think a lot of people are suffering.
Keep the secrets.
Because they're trying to just hold on to those secrets and not, and it can become a part of that psychological trauma because they're holding that stuff in, right? And they don't want to talk about
And
it.
it's got to go somewhere.
It got to go somewhere, right?
They
And
say the body keeps the score.
the body keeps the score, man.
And it shows up. It shows out.
In your immune system.
Yeah.
You wonder why you're getting sick with chronic illnesses. Because the body keeps the score.
And I always say, speaking of the body keeps the score, I always say that every cell, every organ, every tissue in your body is eavesdropping on your thoughts, right? So just think about that again. So every cell, every cell organ in your body is listening to how you think and how you react. So that's why our bodies will produce a stress hormone, cortisol. We react to stress. Outward stress leads to that anxiety, and it can affect our health. You know, our people have the highest rate of diabetes, high blood pressure, heart issues, and all that. It's like,
And obesity.
and obesity, all of that, especially in the
Self-medicating
underserved
with
community.
food.
Yeah, especially in the underserved communities. The stress, right?
It's too much.
And so our bodies keep the score.
And we also have what I learned as an oncology cancer care social worker at Baylor is that we have in us the onco gene. Onco, meaning cancer gene, is in us, in all people. And it's like a light switch. Something sets the switch off. And sometimes it's environment, like environmental toxins, but sometimes it's lifestyle. Sometimes it's just genetics. You wonder why little kids get brain cancer. It's just genetics, bad chromosomes. But sometimes for adults, what it is that it's lifestyle induced and the cancer cell oncogene gets switched on, or toxic environments where there's a lot of pollution, or other things that may trigger that gene to get activated.
Yep.
Or immune system disruption, so forth and so on. And so we got to look at all that. We got to really work on holistic health.
Yep, and those
Big time.
those are the social determinants of health that we see a lot in the underserved communities. We see food deserts play a role in our health. How we
Health deserts.
health deserts, food deserts, lack of services, education in the underserved community is lacking. Property values, all of that that we see determines, it's a social determinant of health, and it will affect. That's why you see black people with a higher rate of all of these illnesses, diseases, because the
Lack of education plays a huge part.
Right, so education is the key.
Yeah.
Education is a treatment plan.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I worked at diabetes care as well as at Baylor, and people would come in, I need to see a doctor. Like, okay, so we get into talking about diabetes care and stuff. They said, well, we just got a touch of sugar in my family. No, y'all ain't eating right. That's what you learn behavior over time. You pass that down to the next generation about you eating basically junk food.
And then
And not enough fruits and vegetables, not
Yeah.
enough water and stuff like that.
And that's where you see in the underserved community, when you have food deserts,
Yeah.
you don't have access to healthy food, you're going to eat, you're going to go to the liquor store, you're going to go to Church's Chicken, you can go to Popeyes or somewhere and get the fast food, right? Because that's all you really have that's around you. You don't see a Whole Foods, or you don't see access to fresh produce in these neighborhoods, especially in South Dallas. You don't have that. So when you're in that kind of environment, then the risk of the health issues are going to just go.
Because it's not even real food.
Right.
It looks like food, but it's not really food. It's a thing, but it's not food.
So we have to, as community health workers, we connect. So we're bridge builders. We provide resources and referrals, right, to the community. And we see that a lot. There are blended families out there. There are families that are dealing with abuse issues and neglect issues. At the core of it are these social determinants of health. And what we do at North Texas Behavioral Health is we provide those resources that these families need. We're not there to be enablers, but we're there to empower,
Right.
to get people to make decisions and understand that they are the captain of their own recovery ship, right? And then we do what I call a strength assessment. So we're non-clinical. We don't do a needs assessment. We do a strength assessment. Find out what recovery capital, I call, that they already have. What tools in their toolbox that they already have that they can use for a positive recovery outcome.
Because we're all recovering from something.
Yeah. And you got to find that recovery capital that they already have, that because of the trauma, they've lost sight of it, or they haven't used it in a while. Some people could have a college degree that they haven't used in a while. Some people have innate skills, people skills, problem-solving skills that they haven't been able to use either because of addiction or trauma or whatever it is that gets suppressed. So we do a strength assessment. We have those open-ended conversations, right? Motivational interviewing, and we can kind of pull that out and get people to write themselves. Because if you ask the right open-ended questions, people are going to solve their own problems.
That's true.
That's so true.
But I share with my clients too, in terms of recovery, you talked about recovery, that we know about the recovery program of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, Narcotics Anonymous, and the other 12-step programs. And they said if you understand the first 3 steps, the other 9 steps make sense. So the first step in the step of the 12-step program of recovery, step number 1, is the recognition of powerlessness and life unmanageability. That we all got that as an issue. We check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. We can acknowledge that we have some powerlessness and life unmanageability. Step number 2 is that we have to come to believe that a power greater than us can restore us to sanity. And sanity is clear thinking, because we've been insane, been out of control. So we have to come to believe that a power bigger than us can restore us to sanity. That's clear thinking. And then step number 3 is that we have to turn our life and our will over to our higher power as we understand our higher power. So we have to turn it over. Turn it over. And our problem is that we hold on to stuff.
Yes.
So in my case, as a Christian, Jesus say, I lived situation, single person, single parent, married parent, divorced parent, blended family parent, empty nester now, all of that. I've been through all of that because I've been on the planet for a while. And so what I know is that the Lord Jesus said, I want the whole pie. You know, the pie is divided up in a lot of little slices: finances, relationships, parenting, so forth and so on. And so we get into this power struggle with the Most High about, am I going to give the whole pie up and let the Lord micromanage my life? Or am I going to keep some of this? So it's a no-win situation. He said, give it up, you give it up. And the pie 10, the pie, the whole 9 yards. And let him micromanage your life. So we have to get to the place where we're willing to turn it over and let him work out the details. And be okay. That's faith. Faith, as I understand it as an acronym, is forsaking all others, I trust him. Forsaking all others, I trust him. I trust my higher power. The blocking to faith is fear. And fear could be fear of success or fear of failure. People understand the fear of failure. They don't understand the fear of success. Fear of success that's a low self-esteem issue. That's a imposter syndrome issue. And the acronym for fear is false expectations appearing real. So you're going to let false expectations appearing real block your blessings because you don't want to give up the pie tin. You want to give up the pie. You better turn that pie over. You know what's good for you.
You better turn that pie.
That's
Come on,
right.
somebody.
That's right.
Turn it over. Turn it over.
So
let the Lord work it out.
Speaking of turning over, I have a question for you too.
Yes.
You said a lot. I wanted to go back to the AAA too, or AAAA, but and also the pair thing you were talking about. I have a question. So you've been married almost 30 years, and you're both in the space of mental health and that kind of stuff. And you're a therapist, and so how has that helped your marriage, your relationship, your friendship with each other?
I think I appreciate the question that it has to do with holistic health.
What is holistic,
Holistic health. People bandy that word around. I think for me, holistic health means an understanding of body, soul, and spirit, with being led off by your spirit first. Your spirit is a connection to a power bigger than us. And then the body is our physicality, which is breaking down as we speak, moment by moment as we get older. And then our soul is our mind, our will, and our emotion. So individually, we should be dealing with spirit, soul, and body. And then together as a couple, we have to deal with spirit, soul, and body. And so again, putting spirit first, Kevin and I have to be on one accord spiritually in terms of acknowledgement that there is a power bigger than us. It ain't about us. It ain't about me. It ain't about him. We think some days it is about us. But it really, really, if we get down to it, it's not about us. Because we've been put on the planet for a time-limited assignment. And as my pastor would say, we have to be in alignment with our assignment, whatever the assignment is. And our assignment right now is to provide mental health and wellness information so that people can be delivered from their toxic stuff and from their traumatic situations and what have you, get to a better place of healing and wholeness. And so we have to be not just hearers of the word, we have to be doers of the word. So stuff we learn in our classes and continuing ed and professional development and stuff like that, we have to implement that in our marriage. Otherwise, we're disingenuous. We're not truth tellers.
Yep. And one of the things that has kept us together so long, as I've learned, is I call it the 80-20 rule, right? You listen 80% of the time, and you talk 20% of the time. My grandmother used to tell me you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, because you're supposed to listen more than you talk. And a lot of times in conflict in relationships, people don't really listen to each other. You listen to reply as opposed to listening to understand, you see. And so that can make a huge difference in a healthy relationship and a lasting relationship, understanding that, listening, not just so you can get your word, waiting for them to finish talking so you can say what you got to say, but really try to understand what your partner is saying. Understand sometimes I could be the toxic person. You have to understand that. We talk about everybody else's toxicity, but you could actually be the toxic person at that moment, in the moment, and being able to use your emotional intelligence to understand that, hey, maybe I need to take a step back and check myself before I wreck myself. You know what I mean? So understanding that, listening to understand and not to reply is a big key that has helped us to be really successful.
And
Good
humor.
stuff.
Humor.
Really good stuff.
You have to find the humor in stuff, because this stuff is really funny.
Yes, exactly.
You don't laugh at your partner,
Yeah.
but you laugh at situations.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff is really funny.
Yeah.
He's like, "Did you see what Dana said on TV?" Like, ha 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 ha. And it's like medicine for your soul, and it's a wonderful thing.
So would you say that you guys have really great communication?
Yes,
Yeah.
I would say it hasn't always been that way. It's been a work in progress.
Yeah.
It took us 30 years to get to this point, but we've been working on it intentionally.
Could you identify the toxic moments in yourself? Because that was really good what you said. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize that we always talk about other people being toxic outside of the home, but sometimes in moments we're also toxic. But
Yeah.
if we don't have that like self-realization or that reflectiveness about ourselves, we would never be able to admit that. And if your partner was to tell you, you are so toxic right now, that's another fight. So I think that was really good to realize that.
But I think for me, if I'm honest, the toxicity for me sometimes comes from as a child, I was a little bullied.
You were bullied? Yeah.
So I'm curvy now, but back in the day I was very slender and skinny arms, skinny legs. And I was made fun of by some of the neighborhood kids, but even some of my siblings. And so that kind of sticks with me. So when I'm not in a good headspace, some of that, like something that Kevin might say and makes me think about, is he bullying me right now? What he's talking about, this and that, or how I dress or whatever. It's like, I get some kind of way, I get in my feelings for a minute, but it don't last long.
So let's just say a couple, right? Not necessarily a couple that's in a blended family situation. Just a couple who says, I love my wife. Or our wife says, I love my husband. But we just got issues, and sometimes we just can't get along. It could be situations and struggles in finances. I know this is pretty broad. I'm giving you a broad spectrum here. But to any couple that may just be struggling in whatever area they may be struggling in, what advice would you both give this couple? Just like I said, I know it's broad, so I know it might be a little bit harder to answer, but just in your best professional, opinion, how would you help someone right now who's just a couple that might just be going through something, and who knows, maybe even on the verge of calling it quits? What would that advice look like?
Sometimes by the time a couple gets to me as a therapist, they are like inches away from going to the divorce attorney. I'm like the option of last resort, where they pay that big money to the divorce attorney. And when it gets to that point, when the love is gone, it gets down to dividing up the assets. So we don't want to go there if we don't have to. But if the couple, like in my office, in all offices, they're at the top of the ceiling, there are exit signs that stay lit even when the lights go out in the building. Sometimes couples are looking for the exit sign in their marriage, in their relationship. And so part of my job is to help them to not look at the exit sign. There must be another way. Let's try this before you go there. And so one of the things I'm reminded of from my pairs training, practical application of intimate relationship skills educational program, is something called the daily temperature reading. The daily temperature reading is a conversational tool, communication tool for couples to use to help them better improve their listening and communication skills. And with this tool, there are 5 items, and the first item is appreciations. And the next item is new information. The next item is puzzles, so things that, I need more answer, I need more information. And then the next one is concerns with a request for change. And then the last one is wishes, hopes, and dreams. So ideally, and I give that to couples as a homework assignment. So hopefully between the 2 weeks or so before we meet again, they do it at least a couple of times. It's identified as a daily thing, but most couples ain't gonna do it every day. So if they can do it a couple of times, it really will help them. But it begins with appreciation, it ends with wishes, hopes, and dreams. So it begins on a positive note, it ends on a positive note. And it's only 5 items. And it should take for each person probably 10 minutes to have their say. While one person is talking, the other one is listening. And they're sitting on the couch like this, eyeball to eyeball, heart to heart, and they're having this conversation about what I appreciate about you is. This is some new information, this is going on at the job or going on at school, whatever. So you share new information. The puzzle is that I got this humongous question mark in my head about something you said the other day. Tell me more about what you was trying to say. And then the concern with the request for change, it's almost like a complaint. You're making a complaint, but it's not just a complaint. It's like, okay, that really happened. That kind of hurt my feelings. What can we do to make this better? Request for change. So maybe next time don't do that. Request for change. And then the last one is wishes, hopes, and dreams for the relationship. And so that's kind of a simple thing that a couple can use to try to build or rebuild communication. And the more they do it, the better off they're going to be. And it's I've had a lot of really positive feedback from using that kind of tool with my couples.
I see at the center of it there's a lot of trust. When couples lose trust in each other, it's really, really hard to get that back. And it's something that really has to be approached delicately because of the trauma that people have gone through. When you trigger somebody and you violate a certain trust, and it can bring up old trauma, and it expresses itself in the relationship, either passive aggressively or aggressively sometimes. So we have to just, again, it goes back to the emotional intelligence I was talking about, knowing your triggers, knowing what triggers your spouse or your partner, and being aware of that, and listening. It's so important. Listening to understand, understanding that when you love somebody, right, it's going to be some sacrifices that we're going to have to make on both sides. And what is our expectation going into the relationship? You know, a lot of young people expect too much. Man, he's going to take care of me. He's going to pay all my bills. He's going to do this and that. It's not a reality, right? It's a collaboration that we work together. Now, when my parents and grandparents were coming up, they were young, it was a tradition that the man was always going to be the provider, you know, and that's not the reality nowadays in today's world, right? It's just, you look at the money that people are making. How much does it cost to make a decent living and raise your family today? You got to be making over 6 figures as a family almost to really live comfortably and take care of your family. And that's not a reality for a lot of men today. They're looking at maybe $35,000, $40,000 a year, right? So what are the expectations going into the relationship? It's important to understand that.
I love it. Yeah, man. The expectation is big. You know, we've talked about maybe on a few podcasts already about those uncommunicated expectations, right? Like you don't talk about what your expectations are. You don't. So you're in silence. You keep them to yourself, and now you're mad because they didn't meet your expectations. But you didn't verbalize what your expectations were, right? So just opening up some healthy dialogue around certain things truly help. You know, can make all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
So man, this has been really, really good. But I want you guys to maybe, as we get prepared to close, is there anything else that you guys would love to share that you feel could help a couple that may be tuning in to this podcast today? Anything that you would want to share from your experience? It could be towards the blended family situation, or it doesn't have to be. Just in general, what advice can you give? 30 years in the game, y'all been through a lot of different scenarios and situations. Help somebody.
I would say that before I give my closing comment, that there's a phenomenon that's going on, talking about 30 years in the game, but there's this phenomenon that's going on called the Great Divorce, where people that have been married 30, 40, 50 years are now getting divorced. And you read about it on social media all the time, and like, what? So-and-so getting divorced? What's up with that? And empty nesters, probably financially in a good space, and so forth and so on. But one person decides, we've not really had the world's greatest communication for 30 years, but we've been together for 30 years, so we got bragging rights. But for one person, it may feel like they have done time in prison.
Wow.
30 years.
And now they want work release.
Right.
Carry on with their life, however long they're going to be on the planet, because our time here on the planet is time limited. We're like a can of corn.
Yeah.
We have an expiration date on us. Yeah. You don't get to be 75 years old, and you ain't lived your best life because you've been with Mr. So-and-so, and it's been horrible, but you've tolerated it for 40 years. And so people need to take that time out to really self-examine They need to pray about their situation. They need to examine themselves and see, what else is on my mission plan? What am I supposed to be doing? And so that they can live their best life. We have to refrain from codependency. Codependency is an addiction. Codependency is being addicted to people, and that can kill you. Just like drugs and alcohol can kill you. Codependence can kill you. So that's not what God wants for us. What God wants for us is to be interdependent, relying on the Most High, and then relying on each other and working together as a team. As they say, teamwork makes the dream work. And so we need to be connecting up with positive people, places, and things, because what we learned from COVID is that there's been too much isolation, too much loneliness, and people still have not recovered from that. People are still not recovered from that. So we've got to learn how to rebond with humans. So I would leave the audience on that note, that we have to think in terms of that holistic approach, that spirit, soul, and body first, with our spirit as our lead-off person, and watch what God will do. Turn it over, let go and let God, and watch what God will do.
I like it. Kev, what you got?
So my advice for the young couples is, first and foremost, you got to take care of you. Self-care is so important for young couples. I can't take care of my wife, and I love her with all my heart. I can't take care of her if I don't take care of me, right? I can't pour from an empty cup. You can't give what you don't have. So you have to take time to yourself to fill your cup, right? So my advice is to young people, take care of you. You can't take care of nobody else if you don't take care of yourself first.
I love it.
Self-care.
Yeah. Good deal.
And it's not just a woman thing. Self-care
Yes,
is
No.
pamper yourself. Men need
Me
yes,
time, me
take
time.
your
Yeah.
me time. Yes, men. I strongly advise, get you some me time.
Yeah.
Right? Do what you do that fills your cup, right? So that when it comes time to pour out to your family, to your spouse, to your children, you have that. You can't pour from an empty cup. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, but don't take your me time drinking and smoking.
Yes,
You're not filling up to
You're not-
pour out in a healthy way like that.
No, that's
You know.
overindulgence is
Yeah.
not where you need to be.
Read something.
Yes. Take time
Yeah.
to read. Take time to do
Listen to
something.
something.
Yeah, enrich yourself in certain ways, not in an overindulging type of way.
Guys, this has been so good, man. I love talking to you guys, man. First of all, I'm going to keep saying this to my wife said earlier. You guys are a beautiful couple, man. Y'all just look good together. You know what I'm saying? And I just appreciate y'all being here, spending time with us, talking about this, because there's so much layers to this, blended family situation. And it can definitely be a strain on a couple, on a marriage. The whole family dynamic, it can be a strain on, right? For everybody. So working through that, man, it's a challenge.
It
It
really
can be a
is.
challenge for many people, and a little bit more challenging for others, depending on the dynamic of their relationship.
Yes.
But it was cool that, Kev came in and he already had a plan, and it just kind of flowed with projects and things. Just you start working and kind of making things kind of come together in that sense. So thank you guys so much, man, for sharing with us
Absolutely.
today. We really appreciate it.
Y'all
love
looking
it.
to adopt. I mean, we know how to fix our own food, which we would love some of your lasagna.
Oh, my
Would you
goodness.
like to adopt me and Kevin? We don't know.
Right?
Oh, you need food, huh?
Right. But again, thank you guys, man,
Thank
so much
you
for
so
being
much
here,
for-
being a part
for
of
the
Couples
invitation.
Connect.
Appreciate you
Absolutely.
so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So guys, hey man, we want to thank you guys for locking into Couples Connect again, and just kicking it, man, with us. And if y'all need help, if y'all need any resources, anything that y'all need in those spaces where they're experts at, man, reach out. We have all the information in the show notes. So tap in, man, and connect with them for sure. So this your boy Kev. This my boo thing,
Tanya.
and we out. Peace.
All right.